Hello everyone, this is Patty with Vintage Shabby Goodness. Thanks for joining me. I have a nice big full journal here. It is a DT for Oohlala Vintage Treasures, and this is her new digital pink silk Atelier kit, and it's the button cards and ephemera. There will be a couple of pieces just of the pink silk Atelier, and otherwise it's the whole kit of the pink silk Atelier button cards and ephemera. So this little girl here, she measures 6.5 by 11, and she is one of my bigger ones. So I mean, she's big all the way around, thick, tall, everything. Oh, all right. So without further ado, let's just get right to the basics. Let's get right inside there. Let's see if I can just pull this. Yeah, it comes off really easy. That way you don't have to unclamp and clamp it every single time. Okay, now this, I've used all of vintage silk, oh boy, lace on the front here. This is her, part of her kit that I did cut out the frame, the middle of the frame, and added one of the flower ephemeras and put some gold paint on that. And then I put, there's like a little, can you see the back of it? But yeah, it's hollowed out in here, and I just made it like a windowsill. It turned out kind of cute. So, and then all the suitcases here, I touched a little bit of gold paint onto the little hooks and like that. Added a little bit of bling here and there. I did add a couple of buttons, and here is a spool that was in the ephemera that I just wrapped some thread around, and a needle that I just poked a hole through and put some thread in. So here's another vintage button. This is one of her wax seals that's in the ephemera. Took some cheesecloth, some vintage lace, and put that down there in the corner. I did hang a pair of scissors. I trimmed it in pearls and some vintage trim here and some pink rope type trim there. Okay, and then all this down here, I hope you can see this. The vintage, this is just so pretty and sparkly. I had to put some on here. So, just some more lace. There's another real light pink lace. I believe this was from KS for You. I believe, I'm not for sure how, if that's right or not. I'm pretty sure. And then here's some vintage trim here. And of course, that's where I bind the pages to. But that's all the front here. I did make a valance to go over the window out of this ruffled trim. I thought it was really cute. Then, of course, I covered it with a big old bow, but you could still see it. And then up here in this corner, I put a little piece of pink trim, a couple of pieces of pearl. So there's a little corner bracket there. And I've got one down here. So that's it for the face. We'll go on in. Oh, well, I did put some blingy trim on the edge here. some of this trim. I just really put the lace to it. And then, of course, this bling here. When I get started with the bling and the lace, it's hard to stop. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, looks like, of lace here. Okay, we'll go in. Let's see. Okay, and here is I made a pocket out of this trim here. And here's a tag that I put in using a bow. And I'm not real sure, but this bow might have come out of the pink silk Atelier. Then I put some lace on it, just stuck it down here and there. And I took some fibers and just kind of wrapped it around the bow and just left it dangling. And then I stenciled a little bit on the back. I'll lay this to the side so we could see this a little better here. But here is a little, I'm not sure what we're calling it now. I have forgotten because it's been a minute or two, because it takes me a while to build these journals and everything. But here I glued down one of the pages along with some of the ephemera. Then this is the tag that I made. It says "So Inspired," and I put some vintage trim inside there, which was out of my grandma's stash. And then I added a little flower here. I just added some tulle-like fabric over the top, some netting. And then I put the little dress form. I think it's just so cute. It's really pretty. And I just kind of raised it up a little bit. So, and then I stenciled on the back. And, okay, I can put this back in. This is just, I mean, it's not a pocket or anything. I just glued it down just so I could have it there in the background, so there wasn't so much of this stuff. And I just love Doreen's, the colors that she used in this was just perfect. So I just wanted to show as much as that is possible. But there we go. And then here's an old vintage doily that I added. And then another one of her, it's a buttons. There's a little button card here that I just went ahead and I decorated and just attached to the bottom of that. This is the pocket here. And then I glued some vintage lace down and put a couple of vintage buttons. Another vintage button. I made this bow. And I trimmed this in that gold paint stuff. Hope you're able to see this okay. And then there's a journaling card in here that you can write on. A little tab. And I used a paper doily to put over the top. And then just one of her little pieces that was in the kit that I, cut down and just put it there at the top to decorate it. And then, of course, I stenciled on the back. And I did curve the corners here. And then over here is just some lace. I made a ruffle, and I put this lace down, and then I made this little flower thing, and I glued it down. Then I made this little paper clip to hold this lace down. But I want you to see what's underneath it. It's a quilt. Isn't that pretty? And I added some trim right here along the edge. And I add a little leaf with another vintage button. And then I stenciled and stamped a little bit on the back. My stamping has a lot to be desired, but this was already pretty lumpy and it was kind of hard to stamp on. I should have stamped before I had it decorated. So don't do as I do, do as I say. Oh goodness. And then here is that's just a thimble or a spool of thread. I know you can't see it very well, but and then just some French lettering. So then over here is another pocket. Actually, I took a glassine bag and made a pocket out of it. So added the bow with some ribbon and a little stone there. It's a vintage button that I added a little piece of lace on, or sewed it on. I don't know if you can see that or not. You see that right there? And then I took some twine and made a little bow. And then here's a little vintage lace and then some satin. And I just put that on there. And then here's the tag. I cut this heart out halfway and then just put this down in there. I guess you could write on it. You know, there's not a whole lot of space, but you could just jot down a phone number or an address real quick or something if you needed to. Then a vintage button. Added some little tiny pearls with some vintage lace. And then I added the gold paint all around the edges on this. Then on the back, I added a pocket. And then I put 3 little tags in it. Along with, I also stenciled on here. I mean, you could jot something down up here if you would like, but here's the 3 little tags. I love this one. Isn't that pretty? Love them all. I mean, if you watch my channel, I'm sure you know by now that I love Doreen's digitals. They are so beautiful. She's so good at it. That just slides right back in there. Oops. And then I added some of the vintage trim along the edge. Stenciled and stamped on the back of there. More journaling. There's a vintage doily. More journaling on, let's see, I believe this is coffee dyed. Yeah, I coffee dyed this paper. Some trim I had in my stash. A little dangle that I made. So that was really pretty. And then here's just a little flip out. Some vintage trim on it. And then I stenciled on the back. And you can journal on the back there. There's another one of those, whatever we call them. So I put one of these on there, and I put some Stella on there to where it really glitters. And also on this bow, I put some little glass sparkly stuff on it. Then added this, and added that vintage trim around the edge. Then I did add some gold paint. And then here's the tag, which I did do the Stella on this tag. And the cutest little pink trim ever. I just think that is so cute. And then just put some lace on it. Here's what the tag looks like. And I didn't stencil on the back. So you get all white on the back. Yeah, it's better if you take it up from the bottom, and then the lace will lay down. There you go. And then I made this kind of into a belly band, and I put another tag behind it. Isn't that pretty? And I did a little bit of stenciling on the back of that. That is just so pretty. This pretty trim here. Then here's a coffee filter that I just added some vintage tiny lace, very fragile lace along the edge. And then I just added a little button card along the edge of this. I didn't really want to hide anything. I just think this is so pretty. But these are wedding dress buttons. And then I just added, you know, some lace on it with one of the bows. And then I stenciled this so you could journal on it. And then this card, oh, I just love this. I love these colors. You did good on these colors, Doreen. I made this little, where I just added this little vintage, it came from an old wedding dress, but I just tea-dyed it a little bit. Added some vintage buttons. Added some pieces of applique underneath there. Then you open this, and you got your trim here. And here's some, this is antique trim. This is some from my grandmother's stash, so it is antique. And then I just kind of put them down with some, what do you call them? Not eyelets, but I can't think of what they're called. And then a card you could journal on. And then I added some cheesecloth along with this little piece of ephemera. Oops, not sure if you can see that. Yeah, added this piece of ephemera. And I also Winkastella'd it. Let's see the sparkle. And then I added some trim here. This is an old vintage delicate doily in here. And here you have the picture frame, and I just put in this little frame that says Shabby Chic. I just put in the center. And then some more trim. Now, the majority of my trims on this book did come from Crafty Me shop. So that's just thought I'd let you know, but it come from either my stash or Crafty Me shop. But I do have a piece here from Lavish Laces that I just love. I had to put it in there. Isn't that pretty? And then this card here is little fabric samples. And then this pink tulle with some fuzzy little dots on it. Isn't that pretty? And it's on this fabric card. I just added some more laces here, and right there's where it says fabric swatches. And some trim up there. And let's see, you lift this up and you just see that you can, of course, you can journal in here. And then you've got your journaling on the back. You know, it's stenciled. Okay, but I just wanted you to be able to, you know, once again, you could just leave the papers, you know, just as they come out of the printer. They're so pretty. And just add little tiny pieces of delicate ephemera. Let's see, I gotta turn my little machine off here, or we're gonna get We're going to hear a bunch of beeping. Here we go. Little thing is hard to get to. There's that. And then here is a pocket, with a roughly pocket. And this is, it says crochet on this tag here. And this little frame here, it says vintage on the inside. So I added a piece of cheesecloth, a little piece of what was left of a applique, and then I added this little bling here, along with all the crocheted trim that I had. I love crocheted. It's just so cool. Isn't that pretty? And just what was this here is also what was left from this applique here. And then you can journal on the back. And on the pocket, I added a little piece of crochet on it, and then the word antique. And then here is the dangles I made to go with the tie, you know, where I tied the signature in at. So we're at the halfway mark. But those were pretty. But on here, I added this pocket here, and I decorated this crown all up. Now that was very tedious, and you know, I'm not real, but pretty cool. And then here is a dress form that with all these ruffles. I think that's so cute. It's pretty as all get out. I found a crown that I thought just, well, it goes with this just perfectly. So I put it on here, used it as a pole. Excuse me. And then I stenciled on the back. Then I added some trim at the top with some rhinestones up here. Just added some bling to it. Some more bling to it. And then over here I just added some flowers into the picture frame along with some little trim. I made this rose with the sage leaves around it. I added a little tiny doily in there. I don't know if you can really even see it. It's right in there. And then this is a flower out of the ephemera that I just kind of sprayed with water, got a little bit damp, and then just took my stylus and just pushed down in the center of it. Kind of made it, you know, all a little roughly. Okay, now this one here, I just used some real old piece of trim that I had, made a bow, and put these fibers underneath it. And that's all I did with this pocket. I don't really think it needs any more. So, and then here is a button card that I had this flower, and this is called a tuxedo trim with some vintage buttons. There's the buttons. Yep, cute. That goes right here in front. And then this, I thought was pretty cool. I used buttons to make a shaker card. I love these shaker cards. Here's another one that I made from this kit. I know it's hard to see when I shake it on camera, but it just turned out really cute also. And then I just put the Wink of Stella on it, added a flower. some sequins put around it. That's for the back of it, but this was too big. I couldn't get it in there. So I made this one with the buttons, and I think it just really turned out so cute. But then I added this pink bow and this rose. So I did sew around here. I wanted to make sure that that plastic stayed down, because that's what I used, is just some plastic that comes out of those sleeves that you put in photo albums and you put your pictures in them. I have a whole bunch left over, and so I cut some of that up. It worked real well. Then I added this little green trim along the edge. Another one of her pages I just left alone. And then here is the back side. Oops, there went the wraparound. Here's the back side of that pink doily. Then I made a card here. And just added some gold. This is a ribbon with some gold accents on it. It's just beautiful. Just loved it. I thought it went pretty good with that. I just put it there underneath the buttons, and then I added some vintage buttons in there. Then I made this card. It's a button card, but I just added a button there along with that trim that you seen a little bit ago from Lavish Laces. And then some vintage trim on the back, along with some stenciling. Here we go. Then I added this vintage trim, and this is a little dangle that I made. It's just a real tiny little thing. I thought it was cute, so I just added it. And there's pillows, pillow shams, quilt. So pretty, so pretty. And then this is the back of that coffee filter. Some coffee dyed paper. And then here's another button card. But I put the gold, I trimmed it in the gold paint. I added a little vintage part of an applique along with these buttons. This button here. And then here's one of those flowers again that I made. Added that really pretty sage green for a leaf. Added little tiny pearls. Added this little trim. This little shaggy trim. I thought it was kind of pretty. And this flips up, so you can see the back of this. So pretty. And then here's the card with some cheesecloth behind it. It's a different type. Then I added this Sewing Notions box, which I do think this came out of the pink silk Atelier. Made this bow, added a spool, some flowers, and this bow up here. But this back here did come from the new kit. So, but I think the rest come from the pink silk Atelier. And then you can journal on the back. Then you have a vintage card down here with some lace, or trim, I guess. I just kind of cut it here, and so I could weave that trim in through there. And then there's the other half of that vintage doily. And then I added this card up here. It's called Dressmaker. And I did add some trim around it. I did punch a pretty little corner in it. And then I made a dress. So I'm not the best at it. I used to make them quite a bit, but not so much in the last year or two. So I thought, well, I'll just give it a try. So I just added a bow that has a pearl in it. I added, some pink trim, some danglies, pearl danglies. And then this is an applique up here. And I just put some pearls, or it had the pearls around this piece here. And I just put a little piece of fabric in there to kind of hold that out, and so it doesn't look so. I didn't really like it without something back behind there. So, and of course, there's the dress form that I cut out. I believe that came out of pink silk Atelier, and I just kind of built my dress from it. And this came off of an old wedding dress. It's flowers. I'll lay this down. And then underneath here, let's see, I added this trim, which is from that KS for You, I believe. And then I added some tulle. I like the tulle to make like a can out of. It works pretty good. It keeps it kind of puffy. Of course, then you got to close your book, and then it flattens it all out. But there's the dress. And then here, it's just I added some appliques, or a couple of them. I did make a little paper clip to kind of hold them appliques in place. They were flopping all over the place, but just made a little paper clip. And I rusted a safety pin. Then just tied some cotton around the edge of that and added this piece of bling on the edge of it. Then here's this vintage trim or applique and this pink applique that I've added. And then there's I thought it said appliques. Okay, so then there's the tag. And I did applique on the back. Applique, I did stencil. I'm so sorry. Oh, can you tell I'm getting tired? Okay, and then the pocket, I just added a little thingy from part of the ephemera with the little flower and some pink trim. I just really don't have to do much to this pretty papers. And it's gorgeous. I just love it. I just added some trim and just a little piece there. That's it. So I'll set that right there. And then here I made a belly band. It's a double-sided one. You just put it over the page. Well, here's the card. The card I didn't do anything to. I thought it was just beautiful on its own. Stenciled. And then, of course, on this I stenciled and I stamped. And stamped and stenciled. But yeah, I was telling you that this belly band is that you just put it, along the edge of the paper, and it's two-sided. So it's kind of cool. And then on this belly band, I added this tag. I made a wax seal, and I cut out a couple of flowers from this kit, and I put it in the wax. I thought it turned out pretty cute. And then I Winkastellaed the flowers in there, so they're sparkly. I hope you can see that. And then this little piece of trim here. Then you can stencil on the back. And look at that paper. That's just beautiful. So you need to go over and check out Doreen's Etsy shop. I mean, she's got it's just full of beautiful digitals. But this is her newest creation, and she did such a fabulous job. You really need to go check it out. You won't be sorry that you did. So, and then here's some more coffee dyed paper. That vintage doily, and we've reached the very back. So this is just another piece of her. Oh. Well, shoot. I made my card too big. I guess I made this one into a pocket. So I'll need to cut this down a little bit. And I put some vellum. I printed on some vellum and cut out the middle of that picture frame and put that in there. You probably can't see what I'm doing. Right here is where I cut out the middle of this frame here and printed on some vellum, and I just put it back behind there. You can see my fingers. And then this is a writing board for when you want to, write on something or whatever. You can lay it on this board and write. It can kind of give you more stability, if you want to write on this page or whatever. So, but I left it a little bit too long, so I'm going to have to trim it down. And then it will fit into here. But I put, I just added a sticker on there saying it was a writing board. And then there's the back of it. So I just left the back kind of plain. Pretty and plain. So that's it. I hope you like her. I mean, she's big and beautiful. I'm pretty proud of her. So I will put this up for sale, and I will put the info. I'll put some info in the description area. I will put Doreen's Etsy shop in there, and I'll put the price and like that of this digital, my email address for you to contact me if you are interested in it. So just go through the description area and check everything out. So you ladies have a good day. It looks like it's getting ready to pour here, so I think I'm ending it just right in time. So thanks you guys for coming and supporting me and everything. I do appreciate it so much. If you haven't just subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button down there and leave me a message. What else would you like to see? I'm a journal maker, but I do play around making other things here and there. So if there's something you'd rather see than a journal, let me know. So that's it for now. You all take care. Bye.